Okay, this is Caroline's Corner, and this is the second episode, and my intention is to create a safe place for conversations and to facilitate unique conversations with people that genuinely want to find meaning in their lives and share it with the world. I am very, what would you say, totally blown away by the response of people over the last week when the first episode of Caroline's Corner went out, and just even to be able to receive it. I've, for the last 3 years, had to keep away from life to try and survive, and I'm slowly stepping back in, but just at the only pace I can and the only way I can. So I just want to say to people, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Oh, I'm gonna get upset now. Just the kindness, and that I was able to receive it, and Olivia feels the same. She was quite phenomenal. So just to say to people, that means a lot, and also people were sending beautiful messages and remembering their own synchronicity with life and their own relationships with the people gone ahead and the people here. So just to say thank you. As I said before, this is a family affair. Connor done the editing last week and helped put it up on the platforms, and that's super cool. And Amy's changing me picture tonight after this one. She says I have to get a more up-to-date picture. So anyway, I'm not in my mouth. So, but they've just been absolutely. My two children are just, yeah, they're pretty cool. So I just, like I shared before, some of what I've done so far in life, and started to practice as a therapist again. I've been a founder of an organization around mental health and suicide, and my husband, my beautiful soulmate, was the backbone that kept me going. And part of that was being a CEO and part of Social Entrepreneur Ireland and the Iris O'Brien Foundation to help with the head and heart bit and the learning. I tutored for Maynooth University, and I really loved that for about 11 years. That was super. Worked with Amnesty over a period of time, and a long time ago, which was lovely, I got to volunteer with an organisation called No Panic in England, and they help people with acute anxiety that literally was crippling and stopping them stepping into life. So that's just a broad overview. I am so happy, Mr. Donn Brennan, Dr. Donn Brennan. I'm just so delighted, and that you're here tonight, and that we get to have this conversation. We go back about 8 years, and I know that'll unfold, but particularly in the last 3 years, I need to say thank you to you. I really do, Donn.
Well, thank you very much, Caroline, and it's been a real education for me to be with you on your journey and to witness courage and integrity and strength. And it's a joy tonight to be with you on this wonderful platform, which I think is such a nice initiative to bring truth, wisdom, and integrity for people who have been in their lives learning through sometimes life's tribulations. And I think it's wonderful because we don't get the honest truth actually from any media nowadays. It's all stories. It's all made up to hook people onto storylines so that the ratings are good. And it's unfortunate because less and less are the media being trusted, and they have to contribute that we're the truth, we're where you get the truth is human. It's our feelings, and it's actually if you say something on a superficial level that's right, but you hurt someone's feelings, that's no good. That's not humanity. And humanity is actually going through a huge learning experience, I think, at the moment. And I think a lot of integrity is beginning to rise to the surface. And I think it's platforms like this that give an opportunity for integrity to find a voice where otherwise it might not. So well done, and I'm honored to be on your platform.
Thank you. And I think, like you said, and I know we'll go into it now in a while, it's that,
Mm.
you know, you're up for, which I really like, you know, looking at finding meaning in your life and in life. And I think that's the difference. It's like we're willing to just say, okay, you know, what might it be like? And I think that's the real important bit here. Can I ask you, and I suppose I just I did show you, and he's coming up. There's my fella. He's beside me tonight.
Hey, yes.
Yeah. So I had that picture last week and this week, and a lot of tears. But he's with me, and I know he is, and I just needed to bring him in there. And I just, before we started, I just said, right, just direct me, guide me, help me let go here, and trust, just trust, and let this evolve. This isn't there's no formula, as you said. This is two people, two human beings while we're on this earth, and we're willing to have a conversation. And I'm really, really happy about that. So, Dr. Donn Brennan, would you like to share your background, and then maybe after that we'll just do the 4 questions and just let it flow. Is that all right? And is that all right for me to tap in and out?
Oh, please do.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, well, an unhappy teenager, confused, totally confused, and you know, and wondering what the hell is life all about, you know. And if I was miserable, what was the cause of suffering, and why do people suffer? And I couldn't find any answers anywhere. And so I thought I'd postpone the question by taking the longest possible course that I could think of in university, after which I presumed I'd have it all figured and would know what to do. My 2 questions were, why do people suffer? And the second question there was, how can you help people so they don't suffer? And that's why I went into medicine.
Okay.
And I was delighted for the first couple of years when we were understanding anatomy and physiology. And then it all went wrong for me, because suddenly it all went disease and describing disease and diagnosing disease and using medicines or surgery as a treatment. And when I qualified, I was sort of shocked, because now I was actually 7 years further down the line, and I hadn't got the answer. Why do people suffer? It's all right to describe the disease, but what's the cause? Why people suffer?
Yeah.
And so that's where I sort of started in confusion and looking for solutions. And it took, you know, a good decade for things to fall into place, after which I saw that the whole thing had sort of been guided along a way. I could never have plotted or planned it the way it worked out.
Yeah.
But what happened, I suppose, was that I went off to America for the first med, you know, these J1 visas.
Yeah.
You work. And there was a guy there who would sit down in a corner every now and again, and he'd say nothing. And that gets you curious, like. So I asked him, what was he doing? Now, if he told me, I wouldn't have been interested, but he wouldn't tell me. Very interested. So eventually I backed him into a corner, and I tell, you're telling me, I'm not letting you. And he told me, and I said, what? Transcendental Meditation. What's that? And he said, leave me alone. If you want to find out, there's a talk down the road. I went to the talk and I heard the price. And I thought to myself, holy Christ, if that's any good, it'll come to Ireland. And if it comes to Ireland, it'll be a lot cheaper than it is in America. So then the following February, I was looking all over for solutions, you know, as to why people suffer. And I was unhappy. And I was doing a retreat in the Jesuit retreat house in Milltown there. And the priest running the retreat over the weekend, I went up to him at the end. He'd been talking about meditation all the time. So I went up and I said, I've heard about Transcendental Meditation. He said, I do it. And I'll tell you where to go now. So the following Tuesday I was up there, and the following Saturday, with the rosary beads flicking around in my fingers when I was learning. And then halfway through learning, I relaxed and I let go of the rosary beads. And over the next 2 years, I got happy just practicing the TM. And, you know, it was like I used to have highs and lows and highs and lows.
Yeah.
But when I evened out, I was evening out like up or the high area. And I have had a blessed with the very happy life. I've been happy ever since.
Okay.
Of course, if I miss it for a while and don't do it, I'm not quite as happy, and that gets me back doing it. So,
Yeah, just you're hitting off something there with the computer.
sorry,
That's
yeah.
all right. Listen, we're a work in progress here. We're doing great with the IT.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Keep me
thank
on
you.
track.
You're perfect there now. So yeah, you were saying about the TM, Donn.
Oh, yeah. So I thought this is what I was looking for. I mean, it does seem to bring some sort of solution. I'd like to know more about it. I'll become a TM teacher. So I went to the dean of the Faculty of Medicine and said, I'd like to take a year out of medical studies, because, I want to go and learn to be a TM teacher. He said, I wouldn't advise it. And I said to him, well, if I did it, would you let me back in? And he looked at me and he said, I wouldn't advise it. So I knew I couldn't do it. So
Okay.
I postponed doing it. I said, when I'm a GP, I'll do it.
Okay.
So I finished the medicine and I started doing the rounds. You have to do a lot of hospital posts to
Yeah.
I couldn't get a job. And then I got a job for 3 months as a locum with a beautiful, wonderful, old-fashioned GP in the foot of the Ox Mountains in Mayo. And because I started to think maybe I'll become a DM teacher.
Okay.
But that job gave me to the penny. And what always got me, it gave me to the penny and no more than the cost of that course, which I did.
Wow.
Now I was a TM teacher, and now I was teaching. I thought I'd bring peace to Northern Ireland. So I was teaching up in the north of Ireland. And I discovered that you have to pay for the privilege because you didn't make money
Nope.
teaching TM. So after about, to keep myself going, I got work. I was working in casualty in the north of Ireland during the Troubles, actually. It was an interesting time. And so I do that for a month and get enough money to go on for another couple of months teaching TM and back. And eventually I got sort of burnt out more teaching the end than in medicine. So I ended up back home working in medicine. And then I had a wonderful job all set up. And suddenly there was announced there was a course in Ayurveda, which is the tradition from which Transcendental Meditation comes.
Okay.
So I went into the consultant. I said, I'm not going to take your job after all, because I'm going off to America and then to India to do this course in Ayurveda for the next 15 months. He said, you've effed me up rightly. I was relying on you. And then he said, okay, I know you got to go, but you effed me right.
He had you all set up.
Oh, Lord. So I came back from that course, stony broke, up to me here in Hock, and no hope of getting a job, because you don't take time out of training for medicine. So I thought I'd study in that same hospital near home in the library and get an extra exam. So I went in to ask the other consultant I'd worked with there, could he let me use the library? And the nurse in casualty who I had worked with in that hospital, she went shooting off. And she went into this guy and asked him, that I was outside and could I have a talk? And I walked in the door to him thinking, she's given me the wrong man. I mean, he's going to eat the head off me. And I sat down and he said, I can't give you a full-time job now, he said, but I'll give you a job which will keep you busy enough for the next 6 months, filling in for people on holidays.
Okay.
And I promise you a job. And now suddenly I was back into practicing medicine. And then I finished everything I needed to do for general practice. I went off to England and I did a training course in general practice. And when I turned 30, I got my membership for the Royal College of GPs. The next day I was offered the job in Ayurveda. And suddenly,
synchronicity.
And then I'm thinking, well, obviously it had to be that I had to finish medicine. And obviously it had to be that I get training in TM and the Ayurveda, and yet that I should have the full training in general practice, because the whole thing comes together. And people would listen to me talking about Ayurveda because I was a member of the Royal College of GPs.
Sure.
And you could then use both.
Brilliant. And in that, and I know we're going to go into that in a while, because I'm thinking, I've been around and I can share some of I've been doing Transcendental Meditation for over 10 years, and I don't do it. It does itself at this stage. And I've tapped in and out with yourself around that Ayurveda system, because I just my husband was an acupuncturist. He came from the motor trade, and then he always had a huge interest between Eastern and Western, and he just loved, a very open-minded man. So like to go from the motor trade into acupuncture, and like you're saying, go from that conventional GP and then to step into Ayurveda. And I couldn't agree more that you don't know where it's going to bring you and how it's going to blend. So I know we'll chat a bit, because I've seen over the last 8 or 10 years, by working with yourself and my own, modern medicine GP, but
Yes.
particularly in the last 3 years, where there's horrific trauma, and the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual survival. But I needed both. I needed my Ayurveda, and then when I needed a Shagan Valium, I needed a Shagan Valium, and still they work side by side. So I know we'll chat about that as well.
I think that's lovely, to bring that out, because, they do complement each other.
Yeah.
And I think doctors are incredibly compassionate and incredibly brilliant people and totally devoted to your well-being.
Yeah.
The paradigm they work in is a bit limited, I think. And that is the paradigm of diagnose a disease, and when you've diagnosed the disease, give the protocol of treatments, a specific line of treatments. Whereas Ayurveda has a different paradigm, because Ayurveda doesn't diagnose disease, it diagnoses the person.
Yeah.
And it likes to understand, okay, who are you? What's your nature? Where did you come from? What's your life experience?
How do you rock?
Yeah. And then it can explain from all of that, even because of the nature you have and the experiences you've been through, why it is that this particular imbalance is occurring now in your physiology to give you these discomforts.
Yeah.
And yet these discomforts are, as it were, more signals that let you know that things are going wrong, and they have a purpose. The purpose being to try and inform you, you need to make a few changes here.
Absolutely.
But if you don't know what your signals are telling you, then you're lost, and then you're left with often medicines that are more dealing with the symptoms than underlying causes and
the combination.
So the Ayurveda is about empowering you to be more healthy, and that combines very well with treating the distress as you need to.
Absolutely. Yeah, there isn't it. Yeah, and I think that's the biggie. And I wouldn't mind chatting a bit more. Can I ask you, because what we do before, and I know we tap in and out and go with the flow. Can I ask you 4 questions? Because we sort of, so we'll ask people each episode just to get a little sense of you. So is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
And you're okay with this? Okay. So one thing you would say to your younger self, Donn?
Yeah, and I said this to my wife today. I said, well, what I'd say to myself is, talk a buggy, take it easy. And her reply to me was, yeah, you should have said that to your young self and your middle-aged self as well. And you should say to yourself now.
Take it easy.
Take it easy. And in a way, on hindsight, that things have their own way of coming to work themselves out. And, even the greatest trials and tribulations and traumas often end up on hindsight. They have transformed us into far greater beings, more compassionate, more wise, and more spiritual. And ultimately, I think we're here for greater purposes.
You've always said that. You're still hitting off your computer. Connor and I'll be giving out to me. Yeah, you're clicking something there. Yeah, well, that's all right. I keep an eye on you. I have the editor. The editor will be talking to me afterwards. And just when you said that, and I know we're going with the questions, and I know in time, and that I've been studying with Alex, who's Viktor Frankl's grandson, over the last couple of years, and he was in the concentration camps, and John and myself, it's actually one book the two of us did read many years ago, Man's Search for Meaning, and through a number of events over the last 2 years, where I know I specifically said to Life and John, right, for me to survive this, you've got to send people who are gone ahead and people who are here that help me survive and find a way. And one of them was Viktor Frankl, and I know Viktor and John, where they are, we're planning, and I have now, and I'm hoping he comes on, Alex. I have a friendship, but I've been studying logotherapy. But the big thing about it is that this man in a concentration camp, that, you know, even the most tragic, horrific circumstances, if and now Jesus, easier said than done, but just I had an affinity with him, that I'm going, okay, if you can come out of what you came out of, but that even in the most horrific experience, that if we consider looking for meaning, or we, you know, now that's, as I say, I'm saying that, but that's, I'm 2 years, and as I say with Alex, but just from what you said there, what you know, to our younger self and finding meaning.
Wonderful. I mean, I think it'd be brilliant if you get Alex on, because
yeah, he's cool.
Of compassionate wisdom that comes from that direction.
Yeah,
it will be just, I think it will be wonderful for people to hear.
Yeah, and wonderful to hear you too tonight. So here's the next question. Who is your hero?
Oh, well, my hero is a small, 5 foot tall Indian gentleman who was a monk high in the Himalayas. And he had a thought that his tradition, which is the Vedic tradition of India, says life is bliss. And he was blissful. He was very, very blissful. But what rankled with him was other people weren't blissful. And this knowledge was there. And he couldn't rest in his stillness because the thought intruded on silence. And it motivated him out of the Himalayas. He eventually concluded that he would have to go west to have this technique he was offering available worldwide, which was Transcendental Meditation. And he arrived in America in 1959 with a second set of clothes and nothing else. And within 15 years, had an international organization of in at least 130 countries around the world. And he was on the front page of Time magazine in 1980, credited with being the man who revived in the West the whole concept of meditation.
Okay, wow. And I mean, that's, you know, meditation, which was sort of dismissed for years and years, it's now every sort of profession are saying, look, unless, and I think for me that experience of peace of mind from time to time, where there's just peace of mind, that you can breathe and catch our breath, and if those moments aren't coming, that's a tsunami in there. Okay.
The thing is, it's natural for us to be still. And the more excited and hyper excited we get, the more we move away from our natural innate ability to be joyful and loving and kind. And, you know, the ability to allow mind to settle, and that settledness to be a regular experience. It's a phenomenon where when people do settle down with the meditation, with Transcendental Meditation, all the brain waves line up, peaks and troughs. That means billions of brain cells from all over the brain start to fire in synchrony. And it now is a maxim in neuroscience that neurons that fire together wire together. And so over the months, years of practicing, there's a greater interconnection between all parts of the brain, which starts to function in a synchronous fashion, which is why then people are far more settled, rather than higgledy-piggledy thoughts session in here, there. Their whole physiology quietness is their mind quietness.
Okay.
And there's more joy in life then. You're just much more yourself. It's natural.
And I think, and in a while I'll do the other questions, because I am thinking, if people haven't heard of TM or Transcendental Meditation or this beautiful man that's your hero, it's how do we then, not how do we, but just that discussion of, so how or what, or, you know, why would anyone even consider this, and how would that look every day? But we can chat about that in a minute. If there was, what was your first job? That was my other question.
My first job. Well, I ended up going to America with a J1 visa after doing pre-med.
Okay.
Here was I, 6 years in a boarding school run by Cistercian monks down in Roscrea, followed by another year in Hatch Hall run by Jesuits. And I meet up with life in America.
Wow.
It was an interesting experience. First thing is New York. You go into a shop and they say, "What do you want? You're wasting my time." You know, I'm thinking, you know, a sensitive fella just out of Dublin.
Jesus.
What did I do wrong? And then,
So what was the job then?
I was working on a golf course.
Okay.
And we finished working on the golf course during the day, and I go off parking cars because it was a big Jewish holiday resort in the Catskill Mountains north of New York State.
Cool.
And another eye opener, got to see where the swimming pool was, and on the gate, no dogs, right? No Irish.
Wow.
So
wow.
Different. And there was one place called the Snake Pit, where some of the people working in the hotel lived. It was the Snake Pit because occasionally there was a murder there. And I remember one fellow from Costa Rica said, "Man, you and I, we good friends. We very good friends." He said, "But one thing, man, you F, for whatever word, you F with me, I kill you."
So that was your introduction from Ireland to America.
Oh yeah, and then an old man then invited me around to his house, and we're drinking wine, and he brings out this beautiful glossy magazine and starts to show me the photograph, and I'd never seen a glossy magazine like it. It was all naked women, and then his hand is rubbing my inner thigh, and I'm and run, and then the poor fella, like, he had a fancy for me, obviously, and the next day he was all upset. So I explained to him I was a virgin. Well, after that, people were coming up to me all the time. "Man, you a virgin? What age you, man? Hey, man, how do you do it?" Couldn't be, man. It couldn't be. It was incredible, you know.
So, like as you said, to come from Ireland on and just...
Oh, 4 uncles priests, 2 aunts nuns, you know, and me like the priesthood, and ended up doing medicine. And, you know, so it was just...
Some introduction.
It was fantastic, actually.
Thank you. Thank you.
I used to make so much on tips, and I didn't trust anybody. So I had all the tips in my pockets. And I'd have the belt so tight by the end of the week before I could go into the bank with it all. And they'd hate to see me coming, all the tips out. Where I made so much I could buy myself a Honda 175 when I came home. Okay. You know.
Yeah.
But it was an incredible experience, you know. Oh, and that's where I saw your man in the corner doing his
telling him to get lost as well. Thank you. And if there was one line or quote or statement, just one that stands out for you, what would that be?
The purpose of life is the expansion of happiness.
Okay.
The purpose of life is the expansion of happiness. And it was one of the things that Maharishi always said. He used to always say life is bliss. Life is bliss. But, you know, to somebody whose mind has integrated to the point where they can be still, it's an experience of great joy, great happiness. And our purpose in spending our 70 years and 10 walking this earth is not only to have these wonderful children and to do very fulfilling work and to do good. More than ever, and nowadays it's really critically needed, is that people have to wake up to their potential, which is love and joy and bliss. And the only way you know you're heading in the right direction is that you do gradually become a more happy person. It tends to happen to elders anyway, that they're happier. But it is one indication that you're living what Ayurveda would say is your dharma, your purpose, that it gives you such fulfillment and joy going forward.
Okay, and I'm just thinking, thanks a million, Don. It's just lovely, and we're, as you say, we're going with the flow, and we go back and forward. And so
Yeah,
I'm thinking to date of my experience, and when I hear you say bliss and happiness and joy,
yes.
I have lot of feelings around that. That being said, I know because I've worked with you for 8 years, and I remember it was Rosemary and John, and a bit like that was synchronicity way even before I met you. That I was
Mm,
going, what's this TM stuff and the Beatles done it, and meditation and mindfulness. I knew this a long time ago. I knew I thought, but I didn't want it to be a tick box. It was like I wanted, and I want. I'm not happiness. I have to park over there for the minute. It's
yeah,
peace of mind. Just having, just peace of mind where my brain isn't on fire, and that's in the
mm,
last few years. But before that, I went and I said, "Oh, look at, let's try this out." And again, keeping it simple. And they said you'll have a mantra, and they explained it simply. And you done a piece of work with the two guys. And I thought this is going to be interesting. 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. So anyway, over the years, I just come in, and I remember, John, Connor and Amy, I come in, I'd be like that, and they'd go, Ma, do your TM. And I'd be like, all right, okay. And John would say, go on in and do your TM. I'll have the kettle on, or I'll have the tin of cores ready for you, because cores works well with meditation. But I know through the years, it just became part and package. And then I got curious. And this word Ayurveda, I was like, don't even know what it means. That's a word that's not in my dictionary. But anyway, I sussed you out as opposed to the word Ayurveda. I was more interested in you. And I thought, well, I'll go and see this lad. And
yeah.
that's where my first introduction of the idea of looking at, well, actually, just very practical things here, Caroline. There's some herbs you can use, that's fine. But this is really specific to me. There's very a little bit of change of the food and little things. And then 3 years ago, absolute tragic and traumatic.
Mm, mm.
Just so anyway, and I remember
That
reaching
was
out to you.
incredible. That was incredible. And I think that, you had done enough work to awaken that inner reality of your own conscious awareness, your own wakefulness at the depth of your mind. And that has contributed to the extraordinary strength that you've shown that as you've coming through this. And you know, you've got access to a profound level, which is what we would say the spiritual dimension. It leaves me more sensitive, more awake to it, and able to draw from there the strength and the courage and the capacity to handle the inevitable grief that you must feel. And it's just wonderful to be witness to it, Caroline. And I think it's fantastic that you're doing this and that
Thank
you're
you.
sharing your experience.
I'm very mindful how I do, and I'm very careful because this is very the last 3 years, for about 2 years, I just couldn't even, I'm very mindful. What I do know is that, again, that I could say to you, and I said it to you, I said to John as he physically left this earth in the most horrific circumstances, as I left this earth, I said, you got to look after us here. And I remember when I went to two things that stood out, and so many things, but I went to my own doctor, sound as a pound, Elaine Desmond, and she was John's doctor and Connor and Amy's. And I walked into her because any form of nonsense or bullshit, I couldn't. I was just, everything just was just horrific, and still visits, but in a different way. And I remember going into Elaine and I sat down with her and I said, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. And I said, I don't mean mentally or emotionally or that I'm going to do that to myself. I said, I think I'm going to explode inside. I said, I really, really do. And I could see I had a body, but I had no connection with it from the trauma. And I remember her saying, she said, I don't either. And I remember thinking, good, because one bit of bullshit here and I'm gone out of this room. And I remember sitting there and she said, because yeah, people can die of a broken heart. And she said, this is horrific, this is traumatic. And she'd only been chatting to John the week before, you know. And she said, I said, so I don't know, she said, have an idea. And I said, what? And she says, how about for the start of it, we keep you alive for Connor and Amy. I said, now I can start there. I can work from there. And I said, okay. And I really appreciated her honesty. And then I went to you and I said to you, I said, right. I said, I know we always say to the kids, me and Connor picked, you know, they picked us as parents. And I always say, thank you. And I always say, you know, if I would keep picking John again and again in every lifetime, even with how he left this earth and how our lives have turned in just there's no description. I'd keep picking him. And I came to you and I said, okay, Donn, we got to talk about our souls. We got to talk about consciousness, because I knew he was with me and he hadn't left me. And you were able to bear witness to everything going on in me and your kindness and just remind me of what we're about on this earth.
Absolutely. You know, the reality is that though we look out and associate ourselves with our physical structures and with our friends and our work and everything, we're profoundly, deeply more than that.
Yeah.
Because when the mind settles, we experience not what we know out there, we experience the one who knows. But the one who knows, as the mind settles, as you can bear witness to, is the mind expands. And suddenly there's an immense sense of just being at home. And it's just awareness and consciousness. And it's just more profound than we can fathom. But it's a reality that it's not possible for us to deny. When we experience it, we know it because we are it. Now, that experience of inner wakefulness, awakening to the one who has all this intelligence and has all this talent that you have, that awakening in that awareness is an awakening to a truth that could never cease to be. And since it can never cease to be for me, obviously, the same is the reality for you. And so in that recognition is the total awareness of the continuation of John as that consciousness, no longer expressing in his manifest physical form, but he is a reality. He exists as you exist. And that is the fundamental beauty of that relationship of man and woman, because they become one. That is the extraordinary thing. The oneness is not material, though it does become material to create new life, but the oneness is that they become the one consciousness. And so that's why he's with you.
Absolutely. And I think like that, and I love, I think we said last week, Donn O'Donoghue, who I just love, and exactly like you're saying, two things that stood, that, well, just in this moment come up for me is that, you know, I'm in the visible world for now, and John is in the invisible world, and they walk side by side. I'm time limited. I have a birth date and a death date, and that's the way it is. And I think, you know, with John, this is something. I again, people who came, David Kessler, beautiful human being, wrote a book, Finding Meaning, and he has been through a lot of pain. But he said, and I thought this for me is how I feel around John, and it's like a part of me is dead, gone, died, is gone with John forever. I don't want it back. It's gone. But there's this other part that has stayed behind and lives on in me, just what you're describing, forever. And it's getting stronger. I don't mean stronger to do anything, just stronger as in I can hear him going, you've got this car. And that's what he go, you've got this car, you know, and I can feel his voice, and I have always, and just stronger, and his belief in our family and our extended family and friends. And he's left this with us. But it is definitely, like you said, it's there. And I think just from people this week who sent in messages, and the strength of who have lost children, who have lost parents, who have lost just really, really painful, devastating experiences, and even myself and Olivia. And they just said, we know for sure, we know that they're with us. We can feel it. And if we just lean back, like you're saying, into that stillness, it's like you can nearly hear, or you can ask. And I know I ask and I listen and I wait. And it's a different language. It's a different synchronicity, and you can't box it into, right, it should be. And it's like, no, I can feel this and I know this. And it's like, it's just not of this world, but you know it, you feel it.
That's really interesting, your last statement, you feel it. You see, when John had to leave, and what actually happens at that point is that the awareness or the consciousness, which we have projected outwards, we start to gather it back. And so we gather it back from the periphery of our universe to all, you know, the closer and closer, finally to the last closest to being, which, and then the awareness has to be drawn back into his physiology, back into his heart, which is really the source of our life and the source of our consciousness. And then it has to go back and back. And the mind is on the surface thoughts. And at a deeper level, it's intellect making decisions. But at the deepest level, it is feeling. And so, you know, the awareness is going back along that path to which the consciousness has emerged, and then goes beyond the feeling to the just the pure presence of awareness, of wakefulness. And so someone dying, particularly if they've awoken themselves during the life, then it's just
he had very much
awakening for him. And then you see, because that connection is there, on that level, you're still one, and your feelings are just prior to that sort of merging with that reality of unbounded inner wakefulness, pure being, pure consciousness, yourself. And John's self resides there, so you feel it's a dialogue that's going on between them. And that's the interesting thing. Love is never lost in the universe. So that impulse of love from you, that tickles the ocean of consciousness for John, you know. And in the same way, I think there's that reverberation back.
And sorry, go on. Yeah, you were going to say something.
And that's why you'll feel, at your weakest, you'll feel a surge of strength or support from deep within you, which gives you the ability to go on.
And I've seen that in people when you're on your knees, and on your knees is an understatement. And I've spoken just to people that I feel comfortable or safe with, and it's like, yeah, it's sort of, you're in a place you never knew existed, and like that, something, you know, not always, or it can take, but something, you know, pushes or does something, and I've seen it and I've experienced it when I've thought, I can't get off the ground, I can't get up. I suppose I'm just thinking as we were chatting, and again, the idea of Caroline's Corner, as I was saying, is that they're very unique conversations. You've made a commitment to yourself as a person to find meaning in life, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try while I'm on this earth That being said, so say, you know, we're talking about a meditation, transcendental meditation, and as I said to you, at this stage, it finds me rather than me finding it. It's just part of my life. It just happens. But there is, you know, you can learn it. And then I've chosen with yourself and the guys, have done a bit of training now, but I've chosen to just learn a bit more, not too much, just enough, particularly the trauma in my body. I'm learning particular massages and things quite easy for me, and I'm not ready for some of it, and some of it I just whoosh, like that. That being said, for people that don't and haven't heard, and again, we're pushing this out, we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about an energy that physically you die and it continues. And I know my experience of my husband, so I know how we're rocking. So that's I get that. But if anybody was even considering on a day-to-day or a practical, and I'm thinking of something that you have done, which is really cool. But if there was to just even tap into or consider some of the stuff we're talking about without it being a difficult thing to get access to, what would you suggest? Like, I found it and it found me through the years. What would you suggest?
Well, I think that the TM technique is something that is taught one-to-one, and there's a course in the learning. But anybody who could be interested could look up tm-ireland.org, and they'll get, you know, some basics there and who's their local TM teacher who could guide them, and they could take it from there. The Ayurveda is really interesting because whereas the TM is taking us deep within to source, then how that source of your own innate consciousness becomes lively is the intelligence that structures your body and that heals you from day to day and rejuvenates you. So all of that is Ayurveda. And if anybody were interested in that ancient tradition of health, which is about your own nature and what foods and routines and recreations and suit you, then I'd go on the website www.ayurveda.ie, because there's a free 7-lesson course that anybody can download. And you know, once you get used to the terminology, vata, pitta, kapha, and all of that, you start to get really interested because it's describing you. What's your nature? You start to recognize yourself, and you start to realize, yes, I'm a fiery nature. I like to be by water. I love water. I love the moonlight, you know, or I'm a vata nature. I'm very sensitive, and I don't have much stamina. So you recognize yourself, and then you recognize things that suit you. You know them already, but the tradition just helps you to cop on to what you already know.
I like that. Yeah, it does. It does to cop on. Yeah. And I think just because I know Noel was saying that he's decided over COVID to put together the 7 lectures, and you have a beautiful team. They're just gorgeous, gorgeous people. And there's 7 of them. And you said over 20,000 hits. And I know they're still mounting up. And I know that's where I started. And very much like what you said, just be open-minded. Don't be worrying about having to understand it all, because what I like about it is that you start to understand your nature or your person, how you rock on this earth, and without judgment. It's like, okay, I you know, so I know for me, I really enjoyed it. I go back in, I go back out, and I know I'm doing a little bit more, but what it helped me with, I have, I get really, nothing prepared me, emotional, obviously, but the physical impact of death and of physical death and trauma. And I'm a work in progress, very, very much a work in progress, but I got some very, very helpful things. And one of the areas where I absolutely, when I feel that sick, hopeless, bottomless, horrific, shitty place, it's a shithole place, I get very sick in my stomach, and it just knots up, and it's really sick, and my back, and I feel it's going to break. And I have got from yourselves that very basic stuff. It's going to come anyway. The trauma has to integrate. And I just keep saying to John, the night you physically died, your story ended, but mine has continued, which includes how you left this earth. Please help me integrate it, that it doesn't destroy me. Please help me. And he is, and I know he is. But I also have to do things. And I know, Donn, that just helped me even around, because I couldn't touch Anne for a few years, just the little massage in the morning. And that's a slow, early days. Also with my gut, because our body's all sensitized to help it soothe. Because I always think you have a body, you're not your body. But also how you said, help me. I get really sick in my stomach. Everything swells. I either get constipated, I get diarrhea, and I'm literally holding myself. But even just drinking a bit of warm water. Now, I will still sit some nights, and as opposed to all this, and I will sit with a bottle of gin and a packet of cigars, and that's it. This is going to take the edge off it. You know what I mean? But alongside it, what is slowly moving in, not stopping this, because I don't want to stop that. That all has, it's all part of it. But the food bit helping me to unclog a little bit, because the trauma is so caught in my stomach. So I've learned from you and the team just gentle things to do around grief and loss and trauma that I wouldn't have known, and I just would have kept putting stuff in my body to try and help it.
I think that I've said it to you that steel is tempered in fire, and you're a very powerful, very strong, a wonderful being, and you're going to come through this, and you're
I'm getting upset. Thank you.
No, it's true, and it's beautiful what you're doing, though. You can see what you're doing, because as you've always done in your life, you've taken your own personal experience and you have suddenly turned the whole thing around to be of immense service and great support to so many people who were undergoing the traumas that you were experiencing. And you're doing it now again. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful service to humanity. And it's a very sublime and divine angel of light that has been put on this earth for this purpose. And this is what you're doing. I think it's wonderful, and just have confidence and belief. You're going to come through this. There's no doubt about that, because as I say, steel is tempered with fire. You go through the fire, but you have that incredible strength of innate awakefulness, of spiritual awareness, and of a very fine heart that is going to actually eventually integrate all of this. And you're such a powerful person. I think anybody else couldn't have come through it in the way that you have, and with the intention to put it out there, even on a podcast like this, is fantastic.
I think, Donn, I know for sure that he's right by my side, and I can hear him. And you know who are my best teachers on this earth? Is Connor and Amy Pender. They are just phenomenal. And I've watched as a mother, and I watch and I see the impact of losing an act, but I mean, just a phenomenal dad. And yet I see what he left in them. I see the seeds in them. I see, like, they are my greatest teachers. And I know, and I will go back to, as John left this earth, and right after, I said, you don't move. And I said, you better send me the people here on this earth and people gone ahead for me to survive. And Connor and Amy are they're just unbelievable. And as their mom, I'll always, that this is part of, what they have to experience. Yeah. But
I mean, what heals is love.
Oh,
and, it's that which our physiology, actually, because of all the experience we go through, may not be the finest instrument through which love can find expression. But I think the way you're handling all of this is that it's actually totally transforming you down to your toenails, your whole physiology as an instrument of love. It's emerging like the caterpillar out of the butterfly out of the caterpillar out of the cocoon, and I think that's going to be the outcome of all this toughness of life that you've been through. And that's true for very many people.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Their cancers, thank God for them, because even when they're dying, they can say that to me, because they know that they have so transformed in the process and come to a deepest appreciation of what is really valuable in life. And of course, what is it? It's love.
And it's what you said. I was just thinking, because I know we'll be finishing up in a little bit, and it's just lovely going with the flow and seeing where this has gone. And it's just what you said in the beginning. You really, really, really cared, and you really wanted to know why people suffered way, way, way back when you were young, and what the suffering was about. Because what I'm hearing is you really cared, and you really wanted to be part of something that could, again, help people around suffering. Because like you said, this is about all of us. All of us is, as long as we're on this earth, suffering comes with it. And it just right back to what you said, we all suffer, and it's how do we get through it in a way that is more loving to ourselves.
Yes, yeah. And I think it stops us in our tracks, causes us to rethink and to recognize there's deeper meaning to our lives.
Yeah.
And, in that fundamental reassessment of meaning, then it also comes with more compassion, and I think that's the learning we're here to do. And it's incredible, the potential, through the learning. And I think we can then happily, when our time comes and the lights are about to go out, I think we'd be very happy if we felt, that I lived that life well. I did as best I could, despite all the obstacles.
The best we could, yeah. Thank you. How are you now? How are you?
I'm happy out, thanks be to God.
Are you?
Yeah. I'm blessed with a good wife who spoils me rotten.
You are? You're absolutely spoiled rotten with Anne?
Yes, absolutely. I can't do anything wrong. I'm not allowed.
And how did you find us chatting tonight? Because we just went with it, and I don't know, we just went with it. How did you find it?
I think it's lovely, because it always takes us to another level. Yeah. And I think it's more real, it's more fundamental, it's more human. And I think it helps us all to wake up when we bring our attention to that finest level.
Yeah, and I just want to say to, I really, for people, and again, to be open-minded and to think out of the box, that I really would, like, there's 7 free lectures, and exactly like you said. And what's really cool about the website is that if you go on, so, I had a good look there again. You can go in and do a little questionnaire, and you can get us, without going into all the words, as you said, that'll come. But you can go in and go, okay, I'm a little bit more of this, a little bit less of this, and maybe some of this. And then you're given suggestions of, well, here's some of the things that might help that beautiful personality, and here's some of the things that might hinder it. But you've set it up, the website, that it's user friendly, and then you've loads of videos on YouTube. But I like the 7 lectures, and I think, just if anybody's up for looking at them, Don't be worrying about going, what does that mean and what does that? Watch them, and then if you're drawn to one, go back. That's what I did in the beginning, and go back. But I think it's a great resource, and really, you know, if you're up for different and adding to, really well worthwhile doing.
Yeah. And there's 3 lovely lady Ayurvedic doctors trained in
Gorgeous.
India.
They're
And
gorgeous.
yeah, and then when they do question and answer sessions,
Brilliant.
I learn when they're
Me
answering
too. Me
questions.
too.
It's fascinating, and all sorts of questions from, from going bald to whatever you can think
Yeah,
of.
yeah. Anxiety,
Yeah,
stress, depression, cancer, fibromyalgia, just loads, everything. There's actually, I don't know if there's any question at this stage that the doctors haven't been asked, and they just come back and they just explain and suggest.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
So listen,
Yeah,
I know you'll pop in and out over time, and we'll keep chatting
I
on the
do.
journey. I just want to say thank you so much and feel very blessed you're in my life, Donn.
And I'm blessed to be with you on this journey. Thank you. I learn.